Angela, it's a pleasure
Yeah,
to be.
yeah. So, what inspired you to the research, to cancer research?
When I trained at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, Maryland, and
Mm-hmm.
when I trained, I had worked in a lab and I had been, doing experiments, and I kind of realized I didn't like just the lab. I wanted to do things in the lab that I could bring into patients right away.
Mm-hmm.
Cancer is an area that patients are willing to take risk, and I'm willing to take risks. So I went to the head of medicine and I go, I'm going to go into oncology to cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And he looked at me and goes, that's career suicide. He said, it's just giving poisons to people. Because at the time, there was no molecular targeted therapy, there was no immunotherapy. There were a couple of very broad acting chemotherapy drugs that made people really sick and hopefully made the cancer sicker than the patient. And I said, that doubled my resolve. I want to go to an area where their people aren't. I want to go to an area that needs help and
Mm-hmm.
is new rather than an area that is flourishing and has lots of people in it. And so I went into cancer research and it was exciting. And then, my research expanded because I kind of realized, and this was a big realization to me is, cancer, most metastatic cancer we can't cure. We can make people live longer and better, but the key is going to be preventing cancer. We're a lot better at the prevention side than we are at the treatment side. And so, it's the old adage, you have to go to war to understand peace. And so by going to war with cancer, we started to bring them back to the prevention side and develop programs both on the treatment side and the prevention side.
Great, great. How do you enjoy the journey so far?
It's a privilege. I mean, it's a privilege to work with people and patients and have them put their lives in your hands. And so I pinch myself every day. I get to take things in the lab, discover things, and apply it to patients. So while it can be stressful, people say, isn't it horrible being a cancer doctor? I said, it's the opposite. I can help people, even if they're in their last days, with dignity, reduce their suffering. And to me, that's an amazing privilege.
Hmm. So, what is your biggest achievement, a breakthrough so far?
I guess they're in two areas. One is we helped develop a drug that's now one of the standard treatments for breast cancer.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, I wrote several books that became bestsellers across the globe. So the notion that I could put ideas on paper and that people around the world would listen and read them to me is the wildest thing ever. And it's a privilege. I mean, it's risky to write a book because you're basically making yourself very vulnerable. Hear ideas. People may hate them or like them. But in many respects, the idea that it's changed people's lives to me is the greatest accomplishment.
Yeah, you are always very good communicate. Not only write written but also presenting. I've listened to your presentations and I read your books. They are very fabulous. Can you tell me more about your books?
My first book, I called The End of Illness. And I actually didn't come up with that title. The
Mhm.
title I came up with was What If Health? Because I didn't know what health was. Was it a blood test? Was it how you felt? Was it how long you live? How well you live? How do you optimize when you don't have a parameter upon which to optimize? I
Mhm.
sent it to the publisher, and a couple of weeks later, the publisher called me and said, Steve Jobs called and changed the title of your book. And I go, what? And I called Steve and I go, what are you doing? He goes, you can't put the word health in the title. It's like, eating cauliflower and Brussels sprouts. Nobody likes the word health.
Mhm.
And at the same time, you can't gift somebody a book with the word health in the title because it implies the other person's in bad health. And so he came up with the title, The End of Illness, a bold and declaratory title. And actually, the book did very well, partly because he knew how to market. And that is my philosophy, treating, diseases as verbs and not noun. Cancer is something the body does, not something the body gets. Alzheimering, cancering, the verb concept. And I explain what that all means, and I explained all the data and how we can actually live a longer, better health. And then because of that, it did very well. People said, hey, distill it down. We don't want to read 350 pages. Make a short book of all the rules of to-dos and not to-dos. So we had a book called Short Guide to a Long Life, which is 56 rules of to-dos and not to-dos. And then I had a book called The Lucky Years, saying that, where we're living now is an amazing time and it's where I think the future is going. My most recent book that came out this year is called Animal Secrets. We've been on this earth a million years, so has every other creature. And there's so much we can learn from how they evolved to live on the same earth we did that can actually help us live a better and longer life. So it's secrets from the animal world to apply to humans. Elephants don't get cancer. And why? The queen ant lives about 54 years, and the worker ants, 6 months, same genetics. Why does she live much longer? Dogs sleep all day. Well, we can learn about human sleep from our pet dogs. All of those gave us clues on how to live longer and better.
Mhm. Do you think one day we will have a cure for cancer?
I think we're going to be able to treat cancer. If I told you you had diabetes, you
Mhm.
don't jump off a bridge. You go, okay, I can manage it. And I
Oh,
do think cancer will become a manageable disease. In terms
mhm.
of cure, I'm not sure we'll cure it, but we're going to be able to manage it. And we're getting better at it now. We have
Mhm.
immunotherapy where I can use your own immune system to keep the cancer in control. Molecularly targeted therapy where I could sequence the DNA of the cancer and be able to turn off an on switch and keep it in control. And we're getting better and better at that.
Yeah. But what do you think the biggest challenge in cancer research?
Biggest challenge is getting equal care to everyone across your country and our country. Is that at the greatest universities, I think care is amazing, but being able to get it so everybody can get access to these life-changing drugs is what's going to be critical. Getting every doctor to do the right thing. Many doctors are generalists, so they have to treat all cancers. So it's very hard for them to be experts. And the beauty is, in this technological revolution and with artificial intelligence, I do think it's going to make the good doctors great, which is very exciting.
Great, great. So there's hope, right?
Hope is it. I mean, we're at an amazing time. And so that's why I think prevention is important because the treatments are being developed now are staggering. So the longer we can prevent something happen, if something does happen, we're going to be able to treat it better. So I'm very optimistic about the future.
Okay, great.
You know, I'm privileged about who I take care of and what I get to do. And so, my life changed really in the 90s in that there was a 25-year-old kid who went to the best hospitals in the country who had germ cell tumor in the brain, the lung, and the liver. And he was told, chemotherapy is going to make you sick. You have months to live. And he volunteered for a clinical trial, an experiment where they were giving platinum, which is a metal, the same thing in my wedding band,
Mhm.
intravenously. And because a doctor put two platinum electrodes in a gel and said, do cancer cells like electricity or not? They didn't care about the electricity, but the platinum killed some of the cells, so he received it. A year and a half later, he won his first of 7 Tours de France, now contested Tours de France. This was Lance Armstrong. And so there's a TED talk you can see, or you can Google, where Lance and I are on stage, and he goes, Agus, I was given a death sentence 15 years ago. Now I'm alive and well. How did platinum work? I looked him in the eye and I said, I have no idea. Platinum changed you so the cancer didn't want to grow. So it's really was an eye-opening thing to me is that my job is not to target a cancer cell and bomb it. My job is to basically change the state of the system from a state of disease to a state of health. And that really is a different way of looking at things. And so it's been the mantra that I followed ever since. And so, story by story, we can tell about how we've been able to start to change systems, to push people to newer treatments, and they've had benefits. That's what's important is that, AI is going to change medicine, but it won't take away that human touch, right? There's no technology that can answer the question, how do you feel? And I think it's important, the human interactions and having those discussions. Right now, right, doctor's visits are transactional. I draw your blood, I check your blood pressure, and then I call you a few days later with the results. Very soon, you're going to check all of these at home. And then we'll go to the doctor's office and we'll actually have a real conversation because I think that's how things are going to improve. And
Mhm.
we now have drugs that can block that don't eat me signal.
Mhm.
8 years ago, Jimmy Carter, our former president of the United States, was diagnosed with melanoma in the brain. And at
Mhm.
the time, he received an experimental drug that blocked that don't eat me signal and he's alive today. And so it really is providing hopes to many cancers that were before untreatable was using the immune system to attack it. So no chemotherapy, only your own immune system by blocking that don't eat me signal. That's one area that's really exciting. The other is, in the 1970s, Monsanto, the chemical company, said it was, almost $200 million to sequence one gene. Now
Mhm.
it costs pennies to sequence genes. So
Mhm.
the notion that if you have cancer, I'm not going to treat you by body part. In the 1800s in Germany, they categorized cancer by body part: lung, breast, prostate, brain. Now we can sequence the genes of the cancer and say, what are the on and the off switches? So we can actually start to personalize cancer based on the gene that's turned on within your cancer. And
Wow.
that's a new era where we now have these pills that can turn off these on switches. And so there's so many cancers now. I had a patient with lung cancer, just several months ago, and the cancer had spread to his lung and really was all over his body. And we identified a gene that had been amplified, that turned on, called ALK. We put him on a pill, and literally within weeks, the cancer was gone. And he's
Wow.
still CEO of a company doing his job every day.
Mhm.
The old days, we would have radiated his whole brain. We would have given him chemotherapy. He would have had several months to live, and it wouldn't have been quality time. Now he's with his family. We haven't cured him, but we bought him years of quality time. And in my business, that's the name of the game. So it's a very exciting time for that. And with AI, we're going to be able to develop more of these drugs on a regular cadence to offer hope. So the
Mhm.
first is it's not just what you eat, it's when you eat. So what that means is you have to choose, I'm a 2 meal a day person or three, either is fine, and then stick to it. And
Mhm.
eat the meals around the same time every day and no zero snacking in between. Even if it's the healthiest snack, it throws off your body for several days. What happens is tomorrow, Angela, your body says, oh my gosh, she had some pistachio nuts at 2 o'clock. So at 2 o'clock tomorrow, I'm going to raise insulin and cortisol, the stress hormones, and it's a lot of stress on the body. So
Mhm.
meals the same time every day, no snacking. The other is that you want to try to be regular with your sleep also. So around go to bed the same time and get up the same time. Even if you don't fall asleep, being in a dark room during those times is very helpful for the body. And getting deep sleep. I wear a device. I wear a ring or a watch because I kind of like to hack my system. I start to look and say, how much deep sleep did I get? Well, what did I do the night before? I ate dinner late. Well, I need to eat dinner early to get better deep sleep. I wear blue light glasses to block blue light because your body sees blue light. It says, oh my gosh, there must be sunlight out. And blue light comes from televisions, from iPads, from computer screens. It must be daytime. So therefore, I don't want deep sleep because it could be dangerous. And so I wear these glasses and they block that blue light. I see how alcohol affects my system because sleep is tremendously important. It's
Mhm.
also one of the most important tenets is movement over time. So it's the hour at the gym is amazing, but then if you then sit the rest of the day, you kind of negate it. Sitting is the new smoking. So just moving and getting up every hour is really important. Your lymphatics that control your immune system have no muscle in the walls. The more you move, the better you will do. An extra hour a week of walking actually makes you live longer, 2 hours even longer. So just go for these walks and move around will have an enormous impact. Is do things that make you uncomfortable.
Mhm.
People who do that live longer and live better. Your brain was designed for pattern recognition and physical movement, right? He or she could hunt and gather in the wild and made their back to the village survive. So drive a different way to work every day. Rearrange the furniture in your bedrooms. Have multiple social interactions. Those are key to keep our brain engaged. So the call of action really is that you are in charge of you. So
Mhm.
one of the things people, well, my doctor's in charge. I ask them their blood, I don't know. So the first is figure out a Dropbox or something in the cloud to store all of your healthcare information, right? I want you copies of your last lab tests. What is your, if you had a scan, anything about you, when your vaccines were, have that information. Nobody gets sick 9 through 5, Monday through Friday. You get sick in the middle of the night and you don't have your records. The second is just, I say get naked. Stand in front of a mirror and look at yourself. You know your body. If you see changes, talk to your doctor about them. Your doctor is going to see you maybe once a year. They're not going to remember small things about you, but you are in charge of yourself because it's your behaviors that will dictate how long you live.
It's very empowering. We
Agreed.
all have to be our owner of our own health, right?
Yeah, and that's what's exciting. And you can't say, "Well, I inherited this. My parents were lived this real life, therefore I will." You are in charge of you.
Mhm, mhm. So how people find more information about you and support your research?
So our website is eit.org,
Mhm,
EIT, Ellison Institute of Technology.org. And
mhm.
we'd love them to go on the website, see the videos and content that we have there to interact or support that work we're doing. I mean, the more support we have, the quicker we can roll things out for the public. So thank you.